Overall, Destiny is a bit of a hard game to pin down, especially in terms of providing a binary yes/no determination on whether or not one should or should not buy this game. Despite the game moving to a free-to-play model, you're still expected to purchase relevant expansions if you desire to experience most current endgame content. Many aspects of the game are spectacular, while others are downright abhorrent. The game has an incredible potential to provide an unsurpassed player experience in the current market, yet fails to live up to this potential in numerous aspects. The second by second gameplay experience in Destiny 2 is of a very high quality. Weapons are varied and excel in different situations, punishing or rewarding the player as is appropriate when they are utilized effectively. Weapons themselves are pleasant to utilize, and the gunplay in this game is smooth, dynamic, and generally serves to promote the power fantasy that the game seeks to provide the player with. Enemies are, for the most part, satisfying to engage with, and the player has a variety of options when considering the various enemy encounters one might find in the open world raids and strikes. However, after spending thousands of hours fighting the same enemies, it becomes trivial to predict their movements and behavior. Almost all enemies of a given race and subtype will engage the player in the same manner, be vulnerable in the same location, and are generally very one note in terms of how the player should dispatch them. When considering the loot in Destiny 2, it must be noted that the general characteristics of the loot have changed several times throughout the course of Destiny 2's lifespan. From static to random rolls, mods 2.0, and armor 2.0, the game has seen numerous iterations on the items that the game has to offer the player. For the most part, things have moved in the right direction, allowing the players more options for which to customize their loadout and more opportunities to chase a slightly better piece of loot. However, with this increased customization comes a never-ending struggle to achieve a BIS loadout, the bane of RNG base drop mechanics and loot quality, and the feeling that the quality of items a player is rewarded with are out of their control to some extent. Any progress one makes is concurrent with other games in a similar category wiped upon the release of a new season of content. While it is nice to always have a better piece of gear potentially out there waiting to be earned by the player, this method of loot design can also lead the player to feel like a hamster on a wheel that never stops spinning. The power scaling system has also changed over the life of D2, but generally allows all players to reach the maximum power level, depending on the amount of time spent working towards this end and the level of content the player participates in. Currently, the game has struck somewhat of a balance between allowing players to reach max level too quickly and locking max level behind top tier activities and/or egregiously slowing the player's progress to max level via artificial means. PvP, while not something I am very familiar with, is in a state of marginal neglect at the moment. Top tier weapons have been so for almost a year, and balance patches are distributed on approximately a quarterly basis, allowing the meta to be defined and entrenched for months before adjustments are made that promote a new meta. The game is relatively balanced when ignoring the top 1% of outlier items available to players, but these outliers have a significant and outsized impact on defining the meta for a given content season. Time to Kill is situated comfortably between Call of Duty and Halo, allowing the player time to react to encounters while not feeling as sluggish as other similar games tend to feel. Skill is certainly the definite aspect on whether or not a player will excel in PvP, but the current meta's top tier weapons place a relatively low ceiling on how far a player can utilize that skill to dispatch other players and excel in general. The story is, in my opinion, one of the most underwhelming aspects of the game. Most compelling story threads are contained within Grimoire cards and not experienced by the player via cutscenes, gameplay, or other in-game conversations. A new villain is revealed at every turn, only to be defeated in the space of the same content patch. Exposition is constantly vomited onto the player, drowning them in a list of reasons why we are now arriving at place X and should be super motivated to kill new villain number 14. Very rarely are established story threads utilized in a manner that has any sort of effect on the player's current helping of content. The lore of Destiny universe is beyond expansive when one considers the volumes of encyclopedia entries available for the player to discover, but we hardly ever see this lore in the activities we participate in while playing the game. The player character is a blank canvas that the player is intended to project themselves onto, but the game does not allow for any real ability to change the course of events the player participates in from one character to another. Most NPCs are flat and static characters, rarely exhibiting growth or a change of any kind, while those who do are not seen to have built on this change of character. Story threads are conjured into existence and wrapped up neatly shortly after. The countless stories in the universe begging to be told rarely are, and those that the player does experience while playing the game are rarely satisfying examples of storytelling in a AAA game. Microtransactions in Destiny 2 have slowly grown into an abomination of the system, with a huge amount of customization options mostly locked behind currency not earnable in-game. The vast majority of appearance-related effects and items available at the moment are locked behind real money transactions, severely limiting a new player's ability to customize their character. Vendors offer the same loot for multiple seasons on end, but you can always find the latest and greatest customization items available for purchase, providing you are content with playing the bog standard MTX slot machine to some degree. Many players were excited to hear that Bungie recently severed commercial ties with Activision Blizzard. Hopefully that the Destiny franchise would become free to metastasize into the game they always knew it could be. The reality is that 6 months out from the divorce became reality, the game has not demonstrably changed in the manner some expected. The same routine of far too distant content drips, rare balance patches, underwhelming stories, the same enemies but with a different skin, the same loot but with a different skin, and an ever-progressing MTX model remain, even after Activision's departure. It is very hard to recommend this game to new players, and harder still to convince old players to return. The potential for an amazing game exists, but as of now, remains unrealized.